Hello and welcome to another installment of Coleman University's Professional Development Training Amplification series. Today we'll take a few minutes to look at one of the more widely discussed concepts in education, the flipped classroom, and how the idea might impact us here at Coleman University. In today's training, we will look at what it means when someone mentions a, quote, flipped classroom, end quote, examine some of the arguments both for and against flipping, consider the resources available in the Moodle platform that may be used in implementing this concept. And finally, we will play around with the elements of flipping to find some that may be helpful for our students' learning. Let's start out by examining the traditional classroom. In the classic classroom model, most of the work of learning is done within the classroom. This is where the new concepts are introduced to students, normally in the form of lectures with occasional demonstrations and reinforcement activities. This material is then reviewed in class prior to testing. It could be argued that all of the learning steps except for reinforcement and contemplation occur in the traditional classroom. In the traditional model, homework, that is, work to be done outside the classroom, is primarily reinforcement of the concepts taught in the classroom, often through basic repetition. Preliminary readings are often assigned with the hopes that the students read and consider new concepts prior to entering the classroom. Unfortunately, common experience has shown that most preparatory reading actually occurs after rather than before the concepts are introduced in the classroom. The required ratio of 2 hours of homework for every 1 hour of classroom work does tend to lead to lots of dead air for homework, meaning lots of passive activities such as reading or unsupervised practice. This traditional model assumes that you learn in the classroom by listening to the instructor and practice the concepts outside the classroom. The primary idea behind flipping a class is to turn this relationship on its head, meaning most of the learning will occur outside the classroom, with reinforcement activities happening inside the classroom. One of the primary elements in this new model is the use of very short digital videos, normally created by the instructor, that introduce the topics and concepts to students whenever they want to learn them. The main conceit is that students would be able to proactively learn at their own pace outside the classroom. Inside the classroom, instructors would be able to modify teaching at the individual level based on information received from the digital platform. Those students who are moving quickly through the material can be assisted in moving on to more difficult material, while those who are having difficulties can be given remedial work and one-on-one time with the instructor. Class time would be taken up with applications and peer-based discussions that actively demonstrate the course concepts. In this model, the instructor is more of a coach or facilitator of learning than a traditional teacher. The 2-to-1 ratio is still maintained between internal and external activities, but the brunt of the introductory learning activities take place outside the classroom, with reinforcement occurring in class. One important caution. There is a common misconception that flipping classrooms is all about using digital video and recorded lectures to replace classroom lectures. This is simply not the case. It's a gross oversimplification of flipping that is unlikely to work at all. Digital videos are an element of flipping, but more important in the use of a flipped classroom is the digital capturing of levels of student understanding, encouraging peer mentorship, and individualizing classroom instruction based on the digital outputs. As an example, here is a description of a successful flipped classroom in a German mathematics course. As you can see from the highlighted words, there is much more going on in this classroom than merely viewing digital videos. Key elements of this model are that the students themselves learn the theory at home at their own pace. Classroom time is spent with reinforcement exercises. Students are encouraged to become active participants in their learning and become responsible for it. It is these last two sentences that seem to cause the greatest concern in regard to this model. Proponents of flipping tend to focus on these major points. They assume that as coaches, teachers will have more time to provide one-on-one instruction to students. Students, because of their love of technology and lack of boring activities in the classroom, will become more enthusiastic in their learning and take on more of the heavy lifting of learning themselves. They will gain the skills of lifelong learners rather than continuing to be passive recipients of teaching. This is one of the first concerns raised by instructors who have issues with this model. Can short 2 to 3 minute video captures of instructors be as effective in teaching concepts as a 20 or 30-minute illustrated lecture in a classroom? Does portability increase or decrease effectiveness of instruction if the human element is removed? While flipping the classroom does entail far more than simply providing videos, those videos are still a major component in the overall structure. Opponents to flipping, including many instructors who tried and failed in their flipping efforts, cite these as major impediments in applying the model. The students are not naturally proactive in their learning. It is a skill that must be taught in addition to the content that is supposed to be provided. Getting students to complete homework was difficult enough when it was merely a reinforcement activity. Now that it is the primary means of presenting the concepts, it is even more critical and more difficult for students to complete. As a result, the classroom fragments with learners at different levels and different skills at the same time. Dealing with the results of this fragmentation takes up the time that was supposed to be used for individual instruction. These time sinks don't even take into account the time required to locate or produce the necessary videos and digital learning tools. One of the most telling criticisms was given by Matthew Stoltzfus in a recent 2014 webinar on the topic. Citing cutting-edge functional MRI technology on instruction methods, he discovered that one of the worst ways, in terms of mental stimulation, to provide information was through viewing videos. Viewing videos was one of the most passive means of instruction studied. Since one of the primary planks of the flipping structure is that it replaces passive classroom learning with active participatory learning, its reliance on such a passive means of learning is quite deadly. Listening to a lecture, while still passive, involves more mental activity than does watching videos. Just because the new materials are portable doesn't mean they're more impactful, given the larger number of potential distractions found in a home or coffee shop than in a classroom. The likelihood of intense concentration seems smaller with flipping than with the traditional model. Educators in favor of the flipped classroom point to many positive results, especially in the underperforming elementary and secondary schools. How can these positive results exist if not as the direct result of flipping the classroom? Without seeing the detailed results, one possible suggestion is that these increases are based on the fact that students feel special and appreciated. Increases in productivity merely due to managers and supervisors paying more attention to the worker has been known for decades in management circles as the Hawthorne effect. There have not been enough comparison studies with test groups to be sure that the flip itself is what is causing the change. There seems to be an element of cherry picking in the reported results. All this begs the question: if we are unsure about the positive benefits of flipping the classroom, why are we receiving so much attention about it in the educational media? If we look at the funding source for many of these webinars, white papers, and academic forums, a pattern begins to appear. After all, the phrase flipped classroom itself has actually been trademarked by a company that sells software for education. You only trademark things that you think you can make a profit from. Leaving the hype aside for a minute, we should still ask, are there elements of the flipped model that could be helpful in our own situation? And the answer is yes. There are pieces of this model that we can apply in our own learning management system that can make our current use more effective and help us focus our classroom time more efficiently. First, let's look at what our class structures are like currently at Coleman. With the possible exception of our graduate classes, most courses are application heavy. This includes most of the general education courses in addition to the technical classes, especially those that are focused on mathematics, writing, or the storytelling elements of literature. While many instructors do utilize the illustrated lecture, much class time is spent in guided activities and practical applications. There are Moodle web class companion sites that already exist for all of our on-ground classes. The development level for these sites varies from teacher to teacher. Some are simple gradebooks, while others are fully developed companions with embedded videos and assessment activities. We have been informed through our interaction with employers that teamwork is an important skill that they're looking for in our graduates. Based on this review, what elements of the flipped model might be helpful? At its most basic, a flipped classroom would use the companion site as a repository for homework and other out-of-class activities. Videos, either from instructors or outside sources, would be embedded along with a commenting feature that would capture student questions and allow peers to answer those questions. Classwork would dovetail with a companion, with instructors starting off instructional periods by answering previously posted online questions over the material or reviewing the class-wide results of a comprehension check. Practical exercises would be offered in class along with self-checks and student-led classroom discussions that apply to the topics that they learned off-site to problems presented in the classroom. While we may not wish to go this deep into a classroom flip, some elements are easily embedded into the existing companion sites. Embedding videos is fairly simple and has been described in previous professional development training. One of the most powerful tools, especially if it is closely monitored by instructors, is linking a forum to the video. This allows students to view the new concepts and then either ask each other questions about areas that are unclear or ask the instructor for further clarification. This technique is very active and allows the instructor to link off-site work to classroom activities. Any and all of the existing Moodle tools can be utilized for practical exercises. The following are excellent for constructivist learning in group settings. The database tool can be used to allow the class to create, maintain, and search a collection of entries, for instance, vocabulary terms, pictures, links, or anything else you want them to share. The glossary tool works in a way similar to database, but focuses on a set of student-written, dictionary-like terms and definitions. The quiz tool can be set up for mastery. That is, the students can receive immediate feedback on their answers and continue to attempt to answer the questions until they get them all right. Power users can even create quizzes that are adaptive and change based on student responses. The wiki activity enables students to add and edit a collection of web pages as a group and is great for peer-created study guides, group-written projects, or asynchronous group problem solving. The workshop allows for the collection, review, and peer assessment of student work based on assessment forms defined by teachers, similar to a rudimentary portfolio. This is an excellent way to provide peer feedback and teach students how to assess their own work as well as the work of others. Instructors that wish to learn more about these tools are encouraged to look at www.moodle.org and search for the activities they're interested in. One quick and easy way to employ this is to create blog-style forums immediately after embedded videos. These can be either initially empty and a place for students to discuss their questions on the content of the video, or the instructor can post initial leading questions to focus student thought and encourage deeper thinking on the subject. If forums are used, it is critical that the instructor visits the site and posts often. Long delays in responding to student questions does not encourage students to interact with the site or the materials. In the settings area of the forum activity, instructors can select options that will send them emails when students post, making the instructor more effective at responding in a timely manner. When it comes to using companion site tools to increase the power of your classroom, you're only limited by your own imagination. While the overall flipping model may not be useful, there are some good ideas within it about using homework as a means to amplify the classroom experience. Creating tools that allow students to self-test their understanding of the material or discuss the material asynchronously with their peers online can deepen learning. While instructors are encouraged to create their own videos if they wish, they should be forewarned this is a time-consuming activity. While creating content that is directly aligned with the needs of your course is preferable, having some content is better than none. Searches of YouTube or other online hosting sites may reveal free videos instructors can link to with a minimum expenditure of time or effort. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. The key in effective companion sites is to create active content. That is, activities that are related to and enhance the visual materials presented online. The more students have to do something, the more they will remember the activity. Be creative. You can't learn multiplication tables by reading about them. But if you can find a fun game that grades correct responses, students may be able to get enough practice to memorize it without even realizing they're doing so. That's it for now. We hope that you've picked up an idea or two that you'd like to try in your classroom. If you have any questions about the Moodle tools, please do not hesitate to ask. In next month's professional development training, we'll be looking at some of the ways to enhance your professionalism in the classroom. Introspection, peer support, and teamwork will accomplish a lot. Until then, enjoy your teaching, and we look forward to seeing you in a month. Good luck.